still have Pastor Benjamin and Mrs. Kamala Benjamin with us. We're going to be spending some time talking about parenting. I know you're fresh grandparents again, but we'll focus on parenting. And you've brought up children, you have adult children who have children of their own. What would be the number one principle of parenting?
Love them as they are.
Love them as they are.
Be there for them. I think that's something when they need them. And love them as they are. Yes, to accept them with their differences. And all my 3 children are not the same. They have different needs, different emotional needs. They're very, very different from each other. To accept them, not just compare with each other.
Now, love them as they are is very nice when they are 1 week old in your arms and they're crying and, slightly irritating because they don't accept our idea of day and night and timings like that. But especially through the growing years, they are not who they were yesterday. And they are not like who you are or you want them to be. They are external influences. So who they are is changing from one day to the other. How would a parent manage those challenging times of accepting the changes in the child?
One is, we intentionally decided that we will not compare our children with other children in the Sunday school or the youth. Never. 2, we never even compare their grades with others. 3, accepted their failures without even talking much about it, and did not even boast about their success. We just spoke about it. And, we didn't compare the siblings, one son to the other and the children. But accepting them would mean just be the same person with them in the way they talk to you. They can have failures and next day come and demand something for them. Just give. Don't say only if you do this. Love them not because they have excelled well. Love them not because of based on performance. Just love them because they are your children and God-given. So
one of the things that you said about boasting, which is a simple act of the parents living off what or shining off what the child has achieved. So they also think that if the child fails, that's my failure, and what will the society think of me?
Yeah.
How do parents break free of that?
Well, you see, first of all, we don't compare them with the other children. Secondly, we don't drive, in the head there, you're a failure. If the parent says, no, your son didn't do this well, I said, yeah, he's like any other son.
Right.
Like any other child. So we should allow them to grow not as pastors' children, but as children,
right.
Rather than because they have high expectations. I feel bad for our children because they are looked as pastors' children.
Right.
So I had to call them and say, no, your children, just enjoy your life. Just do it. Other things, daddy will take care. And if anybody asks you anything, you say, yeah, my daddy has given permission.
Okay. Now, for all the couples out there who have other professions of not being a pastor's child or anything, but they're in a secular job, they like to go to the workplace and boast about how their child stood first in the class and this and that. What happens in the child's mind when he hears parents go to 2 extremes? One, continually boasting and making it sound like they contributed to it and they made it do. Or to not even to criticize the child in front of others, to just keep quiet when that subject of how did they fare in whatever they're studying or doing. What goes through the child's mind there?
See, once the child is always boasted about, it's good to, we are proud of our children.
Yes.
We have done it.
Yeah.
Not that we have not boasted about our children's achievements. We have done it, but we don't have not magnified it to such an extent that if he doesn't fare well next time, he's going to feel like, okay, I've not met my parents' expectations, you know. And also it's not good for the others as well, so if you feel that way. And because immediately you'll get to say, yeah, but your children had this privilege, you had that, your parents are okay, you are all there for him. There are always questions like that. So we be careful. Appreciation is definitely needed when it comes to for a child. Definitely he needs positive reinforcement from us as parents. And we also talk about it with our sisters, and they, guess what? Chotu did this, or Bantu did this, or be proud, Sangi did this, or be proud of our children. They're also, but if we go on to making it believe that they have done this because I have enabled them to do it, or it is my own, it's for my own pride and this that I'm actually, I want people to look at it and say, guess what? Kamala's daughter did this. Then it's a trap. And then they're unconscious trap. I think as they grow older, they expect people to be looking at them the same way,
Right.
and other people are not going to be as generous, and then the disappointment comes. And I think that we need to really hit a balance there, and the differentiate between real appreciation and actually unnecessary boasting about that.
Santhosh, I have seen parents boast about their children's performance. It's good. But I've also seen parents who have not contributed anything and the child on their own has come in. And when the parents boast, the child murmurs and says, why are you boasting about it?
Right.
You see, and that's where the tension also begins. They have not done anything at all. They pushed me, discouraged me, and I took it as a challenge and come in. So I think we need to appreciate a child in front of the child. The child needs to hear,
Yes.
rather than everybody hearing it and not the child. An affirmation that my parents are happy. When there's a failure, we don't push him down, but again say, son, you can do it. That's all right. Move on. Everybody goes through it.
Talking about disappointments, a major contribution to disappointments is expectations.
Expectations,
We
yes.
have something in our mind, we want that, doesn't happen, we get disappointed. And unfortunately, we live in a land and culture where expectations start even before the child is born. We were expecting a boy. So
Oh,
you're
yes.
disappointed with the child for no fault of the child. I mean, the child didn't have a say in
Absolutely.
which gender it was going to be. And the expectations continue. We decide on what they're going to be, their careers, how they should behave, and how they should do better than somebody else in the family. Parental expectations are sky high.
Yeah.
So, and it's not wrong to have expectations, but what should be at the top of the expectation list? Not saying I want my son to be a doctor, my daughter to be an engineer, but above those, what are the top 2 or 3 expectations that you think parents should have from the children for their future?
Let me go back. Sometimes parents push their desire on the child, things that they could not achieve. They want the child to achieve.
Oh, often, yes.
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 That should not be. Second is, they want the child to achieve to show the society, my son has done it. That also should not be there. I think parents should just cooperate with God and allow God's desire to be fulfilled. And I think this, every parent must first invest in the child that the child will be a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. Not necessarily a pastor or a missionary or doctor or whatever it is. Bring him to that place of his commitment. 2, sit and decide, talk to the child what the child wants to do. See, when I was growing up, my father was not a graduate, but he wanted all the children to be graduates.
Right.
So I said, no, Daddy, I would like to. He said, no, I want you to be a graduate first. But these days it's changing. They want them to do a technical course and do everything else. So I think we should allow the child, help the child to make the right decision and fulfill the child's desire, God's desire in the child.
I think that's one thing that we, I won't say achieved, but we allowed our children to choose their own, whatever you want to do, wherever you want to excel, that's fine. Though my son, who is a computer guy, the third one, is a wizard, and he finished his BCA, and I thought he'll be on software. Then suddenly he decided, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to go into production. That's what he's doing now. Okay, so, but he's at the same time using all what he learned, and he edits all his videos. He just send it to in 2 minutes flat. It'll come back to him. Dada, everything is done. So I'm sure that we didn't. I'm sure if the children are allowed to do what they want to do, I think they excel in the area of they themselves. If they change, it's fine. But as long as people ask us, oh, you are past. When are your children going to become pastors? The normal expectation is that automatically one has to be a pastor, right?
Right.
And then your pastor's children has to be pastors. And I said, and sometimes you feel trapped in a question like that. And I said, no, they don't have to be. All that they God is asking me is that I know God has brought us together to produce godly offspring. If they're godly, if they're, recently I told my children that when people come and tell me you have good children, I'm happy. When they come and tell me you're godly children, I'm elated.
Okay. So let me just
so that's the thing.
rephrase what you're saying. So our expectations for children should be that they should be right in their faith.
Yes.
They should be good people, honest people. They should be happy.
Yes.
Now, how and from what they get happiness is for them to decide.
Yes.
We don't decide that you'll be happy if you become
Yes.
an engineer. You'll
Yes.
be happy if
Yes.
you pick
And
this
also
up.
provide a good
Absolutely.
environment for them to grow.
That's our responsibility.
That's
I mean,
our
Yes.
responsibility.
we can't just pile expectations on them
No,
without
no.
facilitating
Yes.
that growth. What is your idea of discipline?
We tried different methods in disciplining our children, and there are failures. Sometimes we say, okay, we will include the points, we'll increase the points and all that.
Earlier
But then-
years when they were small.
Then we narrowed down to talking to them and just talking to them. And I think we have not been harsh with our children and just talking to them, say, son, don't do it. But
He
personally
talks more.
Personally speaking,
Personally.
we haven't had any kind of a difficult situation with our children. Growing up years, yes, there have been the way they interpersonal relationships. We have to talk to them and say, son, be careful. That's not the word you use. And I think our children were more.
I used to
accommodating.
nicely whack them when they were smaller. But
No sparing the rod there.
Yeah. No
Her
sparing the
disciplining
rod.
is different.
Yeah, yeah.
My discipline is talking. I just have to call my children and say, can I have a word with you? Why don't you come to the office? They know what it is for.
And sometimes that can be more difficult to deal with than the cane.
Yes.
Yes.
You whack in 5 minutes, it's
But
gone.
he also, when it comes to actually, he still had a belting session
Yeah,
with them.
with children.
With them, but it's very, very rare. And they know it when they have done something. And one thing I think his strength in disciplining was that the children knew why they were being disciplined. I would do it in my anger. I would do it in my own frustration sometimes. I would take out my anger on him with the children. But with him, it wasn't like that. It was very clear that no matter what, this is not for doing what you did. This is for lying to me.
Right.
So they know exactly why they're getting beaten up. But the moment after that, there'll be ice cream. So if they get a cane, that means they're going out for dinner.
One
at the
thing we
night.
should avoid, correcting the children in front of others.
That's
Even with their own brothers and sisters. I think we should avoid that.
Okay. Now we know all this talking is wonderful, but more is caught by children than taught. So if all this talking is not backed up by what they see at home, it's not really going to impact.
Yes,
Because
yes.
whether they say it back to parents or not, in their head they're thinking, well, you're telling me this, but I know how you would handle it, how you would do
Yes.
things. So discipline is more about setting an example for them. And then these talks and these whackings are reminders of how and where they should walk. So if we don't walk the path, there's no point in trying to tell them what to do.
Also, when we discuss about some of the subjects, they know in the discussion these are the values that the parents don't agree.
Right.
So we better stay away. When we talk about corruption, when we talk about relationships, when we talk about lying, they know. I ask the children, what do you say? They also come with their opinion. So involve them in their setting up certain values.
Okay. Right. Well, how do we help them aspire for excellence, aspire to give their best in whichever profession or area of life that they are following? We always want them to do better than we've done ourselves.
But I think excellence comes from watching the parents strive for excellence, for sure. I think it's one of the main things that you can teach your child excellence by the way that you are emphasizing excellence in whatever you're doing.
Right.
And I see, I'm only talking on behalf of my children. When they come and tell me, Ma, you've done an excellent, they've now come to a stage where they are telling you, wow, Ma, that was brilliant, or Dada, that was too good. So now you're getting reinforcements from children, and it makes you feel good that they are appreciating now, and they've done well for themselves. So I feel that there's a direct connection from them seeing him excel So I know that when I'm doing something, when I have to plan something, when I'm doing a session, the work that goes in, or in hospitality, in an open home, having an open home, my daughter always tells me, "Mother, you have set the trend." They all somehow they make. I'm taking it from the statement that they usually make is like, "You've set high standards for us." So I think somewhere along the line, they have also picked up from the daddy. If he does something, he's going to do it excellent. So we also have to do that. I think that's the first thing that we can do unconsciously or consciously to our children to help them achieve. If I'm going to be laid back, and if I'm not going to do things my way, then I can't expect my child to be excellent in what he's doing.
Talking about reinforcements, um, what is a bad reinforcement? How not to reinforce something in a child?
Right. All the parents would like to boast about the children. When a child sings and you know he's not sung well, I don't think you should come and say, "Son, you really sang very well." Poor fellow, he'll believe that and take part in all music competition. I think, "Son, you need to improve here. You did well." See, even with me, with my children now, when I do a recording and send it to my son, he said, "Daddy, it's not good." He will not hesitate saying, "I put in about 2 hours." He said, "Daddy, it's not good. I think, why don't you do it again?" I come back and say, "Oh, I need to fix it and go back to the office and do it." But I liked it. But he's not saying, "Daddy, somehow we can give it." He's not a person
He
of
will
that
not
kind of, he will not
Okay.
compromise.
Okay.
And I've seen it in all my 3 children. The eldest one is a people's person, but she got into HR. But God turned her around and brought her to what she likes to do. And the way we do get upset. But then she says, "You're the ones who taught me this, no?" So I think where the children need improvement, don't say, "Well done." Say, made a good effort, but I think you need to work on this little more. So that is where we need to emphasize. Second is, don't overlook, when you see something not good and the standard is not good. I say, "Son, you could have done better on this." Even in their disciplining the children.
Right.
Even in that, recently when I saw my son discipline his daughter, I said, "Son, do it this way, try it and see." So I think there should be, parents must know where the limit is. And once the children have become a family, stop interfering too much in their disciplining their children. So I think that's where we need to look at the hit a balance.
Okay. So on the other hand of reinforcement is punishment. We spoke about a little whacking here, but what would be the most effective punishment, especially for children who are 6 or 7 plus, where they understand what they're doing? It's not out of just being mischievous or something like that. What is the most effective punishment?
It depends from child to child. Some children are very stubborn. You do whatever you want. It becomes the survival of the fittest. You challenge me, I will challenge you. And the children know where to challenge you, right? Sometimes I think we need to punish them, give them a whack and tell them, but whack them in such a way that they will know that you are upset about it. But if your whacking is for every silly thing, even the whacking doesn't have any value. So I think you need to plan it in such a way how you're going to punish the child. Certain places there should be a restriction. Take that which a child enjoys, saying, "Sorry, you did this, or you're not going to get this." And wait for the child to realize that. And let the child come and say, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I did it."
I think the losing battle is the empty threats. Today, when I see my children and all of us, "I'll give you a whack." It's become part of the conversation.
Okay.
"I'll slap you. You'll get it from me." They don't get it. And they,
So you have to follow up on what
yeah,
you're saying.
they don't. It's all empty threats. I said, "Then do what you want to do. Really, what are you going to do? I'm going to do it. You do it. Otherwise, if you're not going to slap her, or if you're not going to do this, which I don't want to see my grandchildren being slapped, which is good for me, really."
But the method of punishment also matters. You
And
don't slap and you don't break the child's head. And
Yeah.
I think we need to be careful how you do it. Punish the child, correct the child, and I think when you say it, do it.
Right.
But they're saying it. That's exactly what I mean. Constantly. I'll whack you. I'll slap you. You will get one from me. I'm telling you, I'm warning you. That's all there is. After that, it's not followed up. But what you're actually doing is giving them a timeout.
Right.
You know, versus just taking, you'll get your time out, you'll get your time out.
Okay.
Because slaps and this thing, I don't see that these days. And there are a lot of differences in how discipline.
Right.
Apparently, if it's a big joke, they'll say they'll call 911 if you hit them. And all kinds of things are all new things are coming into
Right.
picture these days. So if that's not what you're going to follow through, don't threaten them. And they'll think, okay, this is part of the conversation. It's not
Right.
discipline at all.
Right.
They're not going to react at all.
But you see, Santhosh, if there is a healthy relationship between parents and children, discipline becomes easier.
Right. One more topic I have before we wind this up, and this is a long drawn process. From when the child is a baby, we make all the decisions for the baby, and with all good intention and love. But as the child grows up, the child wants to have control of its own life. And that desire, along with the ability, starts growing year after year after year.
Yes.
And there comes a time where you have to cut that umbilical cord and say, well, now you're on your own, which is difficult for us as Indians. Our children are children for the rest of our lives. But that struggle seems to come to its pinnacle during the teenage years when the child thinks, I'm an adult now. Right? And the parents still look at him or her as a child. How do we process this? And how do we measure what amount of independence and in which areas do we give to the child as they grow from one year to the other, from one stage of childhood, infancy to childhood, to teens and young adulthood? It is a struggle for parents also because sometimes they're not sure about how much the child can handle on his or her own.
I think parents must take certain decisions when the child is growing up, but I think when the child is able to understand, even when the child is 6 years, for example, the child wants to take a remote and watch a particular a cartoon or whatever it is, and we know it is not good, explain to the child and say, you know what, you need to choose. These are two things. What do you think is good?
Right.
And I think invariably the child will say, okay, I look at the other thing. I think it is not only we wanting the child to see what we want them to see, but also help the child to make a decision, how to set a process of decision making, how the child should decide. Now, sometimes parents say, no. No means no. That everybody knows, no means no. But the child doesn't want to take that no as an answer.
Right.
Tell me why. So when my daughter said, Daddy, I want to go to coffee day, I say, Ma, you decide. This is what it is. Then she came to a place, they say, no, Daddy, you decide for me. I said, no, you take a decision, no problem. They may make a wrong decision, but that's all right. Help them in their decision making. Sometimes they are unable to make a decision. You have to step in and say, no, I don't think it is right for you. You can't go.
Right.
That's all right. But I think we need to help the children to make decisions in life and help them sit across and say, son, what do you think? These are the things, these are effects here, and now you decide. And be willing to allow them to make a decision. It could be right, it could be wrong, but face the consequences of the decision.
And you pointed out at a very young age, you're saying even at 5 or 6, you can tell the child what the consequences are and then say, well, you decide.
And absolutely. But we did put guidelines in place.
Yeah.
They knew what they were not. My daughter always tells me, Ma, the things that you, the boundaries that you set for me were not the same thing that you set for my younger brothers. You've extended it even more.
Okay.
So we actually, what she's saying is true. But they all knew they had certain, till they got married. After they got married, things are different. But till they got married as a part of our home, we definitely had this time, you come back at this time when you go, or you tell me what time you're going to come back. I think that's when they became older, if they have even a church get-together or something, a party or birthday parties, and you tell them what time you're coming. If they say 9:30 or if they say 10, then they can definitely say or not say more than that. They knew that, but they have to come. We definitely had guidelines in place, and we included them in their decisions, as they grow older.
Quickly, when we trust the child to make a decision and we give them that option, there's equal chance of it failing and
Oh, yes.
the decision will go wrong. How does a parent step in and say, I'm still here for you, without demeaning the child or putting him down or hurting his
The
spirit?
consequences of the child are your consequences too.
Right.
I don't think we can dissociate ourselves from that. Now, many times some of the parents come and tell me, like, I can't understand the fact that, he chose it, so he has to bear the consequences. I said, no. I said, he chose it, but whatever. But we always knew that the consequences are a family consequences.
I think as parents, we should feel the pain
Yeah,
of the
I
child.
think that is
It
where-
is not only in the place of making a choice in terms of career, it's also the choice of choosing a life partner. You sit and explain, and they will explain. You can put all your thing, and ultimately it's their decision. If they go ahead, and if it fails, always say, son, your parents were there to pray with you.
Right.
They need to know that parents are always there, that they can come back to. I always look at Luke chapter 15, where the son, if he had a tough father, he wouldn't have come back home. But a boy said, I will go back to my father. And he returned back to that house. So I think it should be a place where the children know, I can always go back to my parents, even if I have failed them. I can always go to my parents because that's where I belong. I feel secure, and there's an unconditional love.
Yeah. This is what I read someplace, and it said the child should not be thinking, "Oh my God, I made a mistake. My father's going to have a go at me and beat me up." He should be able to think, "Oh my God, I made a mistake. Let me call my father." But then the father helps the child face the consequences,
Yeah.
but not protect him from the consequences,
Not
because
at all.
then there won't be any
Not
lesson
at all.
learned at all.
Not
That's
at
right.
all.
That's right.
The consequences have to be, we tell the children that. I said the consequences are there. We'll not protect you from the consequences. In the consequences, we are there.
Right.
I think there's a lot of difference there.
Yes, yes.
But the child, if you cannot go, you cannot go.
But we
a
should
certain-
always remember, Santhosh, but once upon a time, we were also children.
Yes.
We also traveled that road. And because we had parents like this, we have come thus far. Just imagine if our parents would have pushed us out, what we would have done. So I think it's a love of the Father, love of God, who showed that love, and God has given us children. This thing is this, I always tell her, there are many who are crying to have one child, but God has just blessed us with. And we are just stewards. And they belong to the Lord first and then to us. We need to have that sacredness and reverence to raise our children.
So in a way, you're saying that we are stewards for our children that
Absolutely.
God has given us, and that's a huge responsibility.
It is.
That's a huge responsibility. One of the questions in the premarital assessment that I take is, do you believe that a child will automatically strengthen your marriage? Now, irrespective of what stage the marriage is, maybe you're just freshly married, or you've been married for 10 years and had a child after a long time, or maybe your marriage is going through difficult periods and you're saying, no, we'll stay together for the child, irrespective of this. Do you think that's the role the child should be playing?
No, I think first, foremost, the children are a gift from the Lord that comes out of a fulfilled relationship between a husband and wife. You don't bring a child into the world, at least that's my opinion, bring a child into the world to strengthen our marriage.
Right.
We have a child because our marriage is strong. We are together in this, and we have enough to give. The love that we share between each other and the love that we can express with each other, we want to find it. That found its expression in the birth of a baby. Because I think a lot of people think that, once a child comes in, they'll be okay. I don't think that works.
No, never.
I don't think that works, because the poor child becomes the victim of circumstances rather.
Right.
Then if they are having struggle, I would rather advise a couple not to have a child till their relationship is reconciled and the relationship is strong enough to find the expression of love in a child.
I agree.
That's my opinion.
Do you have something to add, Pastor?
I think children need to be loved and not to be used as tools to mend relationships. One. Second is parents saying, for children's sake, we will live together. I don't think that's the reason and the cause in the Bible. I think they live because the Lord has brought them together. There should be reconciliation and no shortcuts. Children are, as Kamala said, children are born out of a strong relationship. It is the parents' responsibility to invest in the life of the child. And if there is a conflict between the parents, they need to sit and solve it rather than using the children to come between, them and solve the problem. Because children are not to be used as tools, but they are just called to be loved and to be raised.
Right. And also in the counseling circles, it's often observed that the child, for no reason, no fault of
Yes.
his or her, tends to think that, oh, this tension at home, this separation, this divorce has something to do with me. Maybe it's because of me that they're separating, or maybe there's something that I can do. And I've cautioned some people also
Yes.
not to go to the child and say, "Beta, somehow you have to bring your parents
Yeah,
together." It's
that's
not
right.
the
No
child's
way.
responsibility.
No, it's
at
not a
all.
child responsibility.
And if
at all.
the child is matured enough, if it happens later, the child should have the courage to say, "No, mommy, what you're doing is wrong. Daddy, what you're doing is wrong." And the child needs to come back to the word. That's why it's a godly offspring is more important than a good child.
So, all the parents out there, here's hoping that you will travel this road of parenting with God's guidance, and God bless you and let your children prosper.